I had everything going for me. A loving relationship with Audrey for 2 years, a full scholarship at a prestigious university, and plans for a bright future together. We had moved in 6 months ago, and life seemed perfect. Then came that weekend at her parents' lake house, where I met her younger sister Zoe for the first time. She seemed troubled, but I thought nothing of it. I never imagined a single weekend could destroy everything I had worked for. Before I tell you how my life fell apart and how I fought to get it back, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever been blindsided by someone you trusted. 2 years of love, laughter, and building dreams together, that was my relationship with Audrey Harris. We met during freshman orientation at Westlake University, both of us wide-eyed with ambition. I was there on a full academic scholarship, the first person in my family to attend college. My parents had worked multiple jobs their entire lives to give me opportunities they never had. Failure was not an option. Audrey was majoring in psychology, fascinated by how the human mind works. I was studying engineering, drawn to the precise nature of mathematics and physics. Despite our different academic paths, we connected instantly over shared values, hard work, honesty, and dedication. By our second year, we had moved into a small apartment near campus. The walls were thin, the furniture secondhand, but it was ours, and we made it home. Our relationship was not perfect. We had our disagreements, but we always communicated openly. Audrey often joked that her psychology studies made her too analytical about our arguments, but I appreciated her insights. We had plans. Graduation, good jobs, maybe graduate school for both of us, eventually marriage and a family. Nothing extravagant, just a good, stable life built together. I had heard stories about her younger sister Zoe, but never met her until that fateful weekend. Audrey described Zoe as going through a phase, 17 years old, rebellious, constantly seeking attention. Their parents struggled with her behavior, which included skipping school, sneaking out at night, and being caught with alcohol several times. Despite the red flags, I was excited to meet her, hoping to make a good impression on all members of the family I might someday join. The invitation came suddenly. Audrey's parents had just opened their lake house for the season, and wanted us to join them for the weekend. It was mid-April, still chilly but beautiful around the lake. We packed lightly and drove the 3 hours on Friday afternoon, arriving just as the sun was setting over the water. The lake house was magnificent, not ostentatious, but clearly the home of a successful family. Audrey's father was an orthopedic surgeon, her mother, a former corporate lawyer, who now managed the family's investments. They greeted us warmly, her father shaking my hand firmly while her mother hugged me like I was already part of the family. Then, there was Zoe. She descended the stairs as we were settling in, wearing torn jeans and an oversized sweatshirt despite the warmth of the house. Her eyes darted around, never quite meeting mine during introductions. Her handshake was fleeting, barely a touch before she withdrew. "Nice to finally meet you," I said, trying to be friendly. Whatever, she replied, already turning away. Audrey shot me an apologetic look, but I shrugged it off. Teenage angst was not unusual, and I did not take it personally. The weekend progressed pleasantly enough. Saturday morning we went hiking around the lake. Zoe declined to join, preferring to stay in her room. During meals she was mostly silent, occasionally making sarcastic comments that her parents gently rebuked. I noticed her watching me sometimes, especially when I was talking with Audrey, but thought nothing of it. Saturday evening we had a barbecue on the deck. Zoe joined us, surprisingly more animated than before. She asked me questions about university and my career plans, seeming genuinely interested. I was pleased at the apparent thawing in her attitude and answered enthusiastically. Audrey squeezed my hand under the table, clearly happy to see us getting along. Later that night, as Audrey and I prepared for bed, she thanked me for making an effort with her sister. "Zoe does not connect with many people," she explained. "It means a lot that you tried." We drove back to campus Sunday evening, both feeling the weekend had been a success. Audrey mentioned that Zoe had even texted her saying I was not as boring as expected, which we both laughed about. 3 days later, my entire world collapsed. I was in the engineering lab when my phone buzzed with a campus number. The administrative assistant from the Dean of Students' office was calling requesting my immediate presence for an emergency meeting. No details, just an urgent summons that could not wait until tomorrow. A knot formed in my stomach as I packed up my materials. Emergency meetings were never good news. Had something happened to Audrey? Was there a problem with my scholarship? I texted Audrey but received no response, which was unusual. She always kept her phone nearby. The administrative building seemed unnaturally quiet when I arrived. I was directed to a conference room, where 3 people waited: Dean Thompson Miranda Parker from the Title IX office and Officer Reynolds from campus security. Their expressions were grave. "Mr. Casey, please sit down," the dean said, gesturing to the chair across from them. "We have received a serious allegation that requires immediate attention." The room seemed to tilt as he continued speaking. Words reached my ears but did not register properly at first. Accusation: sexual assault. Minor: Zoe Harris. Last weekend: Lake House. This is absurd. I finally managed my voice surprisingly steady despite the panic rising in my chest. Nothing happened. Nothing at all. Miranda Parker leaned forward, her expression neutral, but her eyes assessing. "We understand this is difficult, but we take all allegations of sexual misconduct extremely seriously, especially involving a minor. Zoe Harris has provided a detailed statement about an incident she says occurred Saturday night at her family's lake house." What statement? What is she claiming? I asked, my mind racing through every interaction with Zoe, searching for anything that could have been misinterpreted. Officer Reynolds opened a folder, but did not share its contents. "For now, we are informing you that you have been accused of serious misconduct. Effective immediately, you are suspended from all university activities pending a formal investigation. You are not to attend classes, use university facilities, or contact any member of the Harris family. But my classes, my research project, my scholarship, all suspended," the dean cut in firmly. "You will receive formal notification in writing. We strongly advise you to seek legal counsel before the formal hearing next week." I left the building in a daze, trying repeatedly to call Audrey. No answer. My text went undelivered, suggesting she had blocked my number. The 15-minute walk to our apartment felt like miles. When I arrived, the scene that greeted me confirmed my worst fears. Audrey was packing her clothes into suitcases, her movements jerky and aggressive. Her eyes, when she looked up, were red-rimmed but cold. "Audrey, please, you have to listen to me. Get away from me," she shouted, backing toward the bedroom door. "How could you do this to my sister? To me, I did not do anything. This is some kind of terrible mistake or misunderstanding. She called me crying yesterday." Audrey cut me off, her voice trembling with rage. 17 years old, Casey. A child. "She told me everything: how you cornered her in the hallway when everyone was asleep, how you touched her, what you said to her. She was terrified to tell anyone, but she finally broke down. How could you? None of that happened. We barely spoke all weekend except at dinner. I was with you the entire time." "Not the whole time. I fell asleep early. Saturday night, remember? You said you were going to read in the living room. That is when you found her alone." The accusation was so specific, yet so completely fabricated, that I struggled to respond coherently. "Audrey, think about this. You know me. 2 years together. Would I ever do something like that? To anyone, let alone your sister?" For a moment, doubt flickered across her face. Then she hardened again. "I thought I knew you. I was wrong." She zipped her suitcase closed with finality. "I will be back tomorrow with my father to get the rest of my things. Do not be here." She brushed past me, dragging her suitcase. At the door, she turned back once. "They said you denied it happened. That is what hurts the most. You could not even admit it and apologize." The door slammed behind her, leaving me alone in sudden, devastating silence. Within 1 week, the university had conducted what they called a thorough investigation and scheduled my expulsion hearing. I had no money for a lawyer, and no idea how to defend myself against accusations with no evidence beyond Zoe's word against mine. My parents offered their life savings for legal representation, but I refused. The amount would barely cover a retainer for a qualified attorney, and they needed that money. The hearing itself was a blur of procedural statements and emotional testimony. I was allowed to attend via video conference, but not to directly question my accuser. Zoe appeared on screen tearful and seemingly fragile, as she recounted her fabricated story with disturbing detail. She described how I had allegedly cornered her in the hallway while everyone slept, made inappropriate comments about her appearance, and touched her against her will, before she managed to push me away and run to her room. I presented my defense simply that none of it had happened, that I had been reading in the living room before joining Audrey in bed. I had no witnesses, no evidence, just my word against hers. The decision took less than 48 hours. Expulsion effective immediately, with a permanent notation in my academic record regarding the reason. My scholarship obviously was revoked. 2.5 years of perfect grades and hard work gone in an instant. The professional fallout was just as swift. My teaching assistant position, which helped cover expenses not included in my scholarship, terminated my contract, citing a morality clause. The campus coffee shop where I worked weekends fired me the same day, the manager avoiding eye contact as she handed me my final check. Most devastating was the email from Thornton Engineering, where I had secured a prestigious summer internship. After a routine background check, we regret to inform you that we must rescind our offer. The message continued with legal boilerplate, but the meaning was clear. My name had been flagged, my reputation destroyed. Bills began piling up immediately. The apartment lease was in both our names, but Audrey had moved back to her parents' home, leaving me solely responsible for rent I could not afford. Utilities, groceries, car insurance, all the mundane expenses of adult life became insurmountable obstacles without income. The social isolation was perhaps the cruelest aspect of my new reality. Friends from the engineering program stopped responding to messages. Study group members blocked me on social media. Even professors who had mentored me for years now passed me in hallways with averted eyes during my final days on campus. Online, the situation was even worse. Audrey never named me directly in her social media posts, but the implication was clear in her vague statements about supporting victims and believing women. Mutual friends commented with messages of support for her, many adding how shocked and disgusted they were. My own social media became a battlefield of accusations from people I had never met, forcing me to shut down all accounts. The few friends who initially reached out with questions or concern soon disappeared, whether convinced by the allegations or simply wanting to avoid association with someone toxic I could not tell. By the end of the second week, my phone had stopped ringing entirely. My family's reaction was mixed and painful in its own way. My mother believed my innocence unquestioningly, her support unwavering but helpless from 500 miles away. My father was less certain, his awkward questions revealing doubts he could not quite voice directly. "Are you sure there was not some misunderstanding?" he asked during one difficult phone call. "Maybe something happened that seemed innocent to you, but could have been interpreted differently." His uncertainty cut deeper than the outright condemnation from others. If my own father harbored doubts, what hope did I have of convincing anyone else? Extended family members gradually stopped communicating. An invitation to my cousin's wedding was quietly withdrawn. My aunt explained apologetically that, given the circumstances, my presence might detract from the celebration. By the end of April, I had hit rock bottom. Unable to make rent and with nowhere else to go, I packed my belongings into my 12-year-old Honda and drove back to my hometown. My childhood bedroom had been converted to a home office years ago, so I settled into the partially finished basement of my parents' modest house. Depression and anxiety became my constant companions. Sleep was elusive, and when it came, nightmares followed. I lost weight, lost interest, lost hope. Therapy might have helped, but it was a luxury I could not afford without insurance or income. Job applications became exercises in futility. Local positions within my skill set all required background checks, and though I had not been charged with any crime, the university's disciplinary action was enough to raise red flags. I finally secured a night shift stocking shelves at a grocery store, minimum wage work far below my qualifications. but one of the few places that did not dig too deeply into my background. Some days climbing out of bed seemed pointless. The future I had planned, the person I thought I would become, the life I had worked toward, all obliterated by a lie I could not disprove. I began to wonder if continuing to fight was worth the effort. Then, 5 months after the accusation, a message appeared that would change everything. The notification appeared while I was on break at work. A simple text from a number I still had memorized, Thomas Chen, my former roommate from sophomore year. We had remained friendly even after I moved in with Audrey, occasionally meeting for study sessions or basketball at the campus rec center. "Hey man, been thinking about you. Can we talk? Not on social media?" I stared at the message for several minutes, suspicious of his motives. Thomas had not reached out since the accusations became public. Why now? Was this some kind of trap? Someone trying to get me to say something incriminating? Against my better judgment? I responded, "Sure." We arranged a video call for the following evening. When Thomas's face appeared on my screen, his expression was guarded, but not hostile. "You look rough," he said, by way of greeting. I had not bothered to check my appearance before the call. My hair had grown shaggy, and I had lost enough weight that my face appeared gaunt. "Been better," I admitted. Why the sudden interest? Thomas glanced over his shoulder, as if checking whether anyone else could hear him. "Look, I never believed the accusations. Something seemed off from the beginning." My heart rate quickened, the first flutter of hope I had felt in months. "What do you mean?" I ran into Audrey's roommate Jasmine last week. She mentioned something interesting. Apparently Zoe has made similar accusations before against one of her high school teachers. Nothing came of it. The school investigated and found inconsistencies in her story. "And you are just telling me this now?" I could not keep the bitterness from my voice. Thomas had the decency to look ashamed. "Everyone was piling on you so quickly. The campus atmosphere was toxic. I am sorry I did not reach out sooner. But honestly, I was afraid of the blowback." His honesty stung, but it was also the first real connection I had felt with another person in months. We talked for nearly 2 hours that night, Thomas filling me in on campus gossip, and eventually offering to help however he could. "I have some pre-law friends who might know resources for cases like yours," he suggested before signing off. "Let me ask around." That conversation became the catalyst for my slow climb out of despair. The realization that not everyone had completely abandoned me, combined with this new information about Zoe's history, ignited something within me. If I had given up, I would never have known there might be a path forward. The following week, I began methodically documenting every detail I could recall about the weekend in question. Times, locations, conversations, anything that might help establish the truth. I created a timeline noting where witnesses might have seen me and identifying potential inconsistencies in Zoe's account. Through Thomas's connections, I found a legal aid clinic specializing in campus disciplinary cases. The attorney assigned to me, Maria Gonzalez, could not promise miracles, but agreed the university's investigation had been rushed and inadequate. They failed to interview potential witnesses, did not request security footage from the Lake House community gates, and gave you no meaningful opportunity to defend yourself, she noted, after reviewing my case. "We may not be able to undo all the damage, but we can build a case for appeal and possible legal action against both the university and potentially for defamation." With Maria's guidance, I began gathering evidence. The most critical breakthrough came when we discovered the Lake House community had security cameras at the entrance gates and the community store. With a formal legal request, we obtained footage showing me entering the community store at the exact time Zoe claimed I had cornered her in the hallway. Further evidence emerged from unexpected sources. Thomas had quietly reached out to mutual friends, and a few began to question the narrative they had accepted without evidence. One provided screenshots of Zoe's social media history, revealing disturbing patterns of attention-seeking behavior and vague accusations against others. Most damning was a series of text messages between Zoe and a friend obtained through the legal discovery process. The night before making her accusation, Zoe had texted, "Going to drop a bomb tomorrow. Tired of being the screwed-up little sister everyone ignores." When her friend asked what she meant, Zoe replied, "Audrey's perfect boyfriend is not so perfect. Watch how fast everyone rallies around me for a change." The text messages did not explicitly admit to fabricating the assault allegation, but they established a clear motive and premeditation that contradicted her claim of being too traumatized to come forward immediately. While gathering evidence, I also focused on rebuilding myself. A community mental health program offered sliding-scale therapy sessions I could just barely afford on my grocery store wages. The therapist helped me process the trauma of false accusation and develop coping strategies for the anxiety that had become constant. By the 7th month after my expulsion, Maria had compiled enough evidence to file a formal appeal with the university and send legal demand letters to clear my name. We also prepared a carefully worded press release for local media, knowing that public exposure might be necessary if the university refused to reconsider. The waiting was excruciating. Each day stretched endlessly as we waited for responses. I continued working overnight shifts, saving every penny for potential legal fees if we needed to escalate to a lawsuit. My parents, now fully convinced of my innocence, offered their unwavering support, my father apologizing tearfully for his initial doubts. 8 months after the accusation, we submitted our full dossier of evidence to the University Board of Trustees, bypassing the same administrators who had rushed my expulsion. The evidence was compelling enough that they agreed to re-examine the case within 30 days. 29 days later, my phone rang with news that would change everything once again. Casey Maria's voice had an unusual urgency. "Something has happened. Zoe Harris has recanted her accusation." The words hit me like a physical blow. After 9 months of fighting to prove my innocence, the truth had emerged from the most unexpected source. According to Maria, Zoe had suffered what her parents described as an emotional breakdown during a therapy session. Overwhelmed with guilt, she had confessed that the entire accusation was fabricated. Her therapist, bound by both legal and ethical obligations, when a false report of a crime was disclosed, had advised the family to come forward. Zoe's parents had contacted the university first, then reached out through their attorney to offer a formal written apology and retraction. They explained that Zoe had a history of attention-seeking behavior and emotional disturbances exacerbated by resentment toward her older sister. The accusation had been her way of shifting family attention to herself, while punishing Audrey for her perfect life. Within 48 hours of Zoe's confession, the university issued a formal apology and agreed to expunge all records of the disciplinary action. The president called me personally, expressing deep regret for the university's failure to conduct a proper investigation and offering immediate readmission with a reinstated scholarship plus additional compensation. Local news outlets that had subtly covered my expulsion, with phrases like alleged misconduct, now published follow-up stories about the false accusation and its devastating impact. A few reporters reached out for interviews, which Maria helped me navigate carefully. I wanted vindication, not vengeance. The social reaction was swift and dizzying. Former friends sent messages expressing shock and offering renewed friendship. Social media comments shifted from condemnation to support, with many expressing outrage at how quickly I had been judged. Several professors reached out with offers to help me continue my academic career, whether at Westlake or elsewhere. The most difficult encounter came 3 days after the news broke, when Audrey appeared at my parents' house. I had moved back into a small apartment near my hometown by then, but was visiting for Sunday dinner when she arrived unannounced. My mother answered the door, her expression hardening at the sight of Audrey standing nervously on the porch. She called me to the entryway without inviting Audrey inside. Seeing her again was surreal, like encountering a character from a movie I had watched long ago, rather than the woman I had once planned to marry. She looked smaller, somehow diminished by guilt or shame. "Casey," she began, her voice breaking. "I do not know where to start. I am so sorry. I should have believed you." The apology felt hollow against the magnitude of what had happened. "You knew me for 2 years," I replied, my voice steady but distant. "You knew my character, my values. And you threw all that away in an instant." Tears welled in her eyes. "I know. It was my sister. I thought I had to support her. I never imagined she would lie about something so serious." "That is the problem," I said. "You never even considered it might not be true." You never gave me the benefit of the doubt. Not once. Is there any way we could? No, I cut her off already, knowing her question. There is not. Too much has happened. She nodded, accepting this without argument. I understand. I just wanted you to know how sorry I am. After she left, my mother put her arm around my shoulders. You handled that well, she said softly. Similar scenes played out in the following weeks. Former friends approached with awkward apologies. We were just trying to support victims. Everyone was saying the same thing. You have to understand the climate on campus. The university's offer of readmission came with additional enticements, priority housing, research opportunities, even potential teaching assistantships. But the thought of returning to the campus that had discarded me so easily felt wrong. The faces might be friendly now, but I would always wonder what they had said about me when they thought I was guilty. Instead, I accepted an offer from a university 3 states away, a fresh start in a place where my story was not known. The financial settlement from Westlake provided enough to cover tuition and living expenses, freeing me from immediate financial worries for the first time in nearly a year. Legal action against the Harris family was an option Maria encouraged me to consider, but after much reflection, I declined to pursue it. Zoe was still a troubled teenager who needed help, not punishment. Her parents had lost their dignity in coming forward with the truth, and financial penalties would not undo the damage already done. I did, however, join a support network for people who had faced false accusations. The group provided not just emotional support but practical advice on rebuilding one's life and reputation after such an ordeal. Through their community, I found a new sense of purpose, advocating for due process protections and the principle that accusations must be fairly investigated, not automatically believed or disbelieved based on gender or status. The damage to my reputation has never fully healed. Internet searches of my name still bring up the original accusations, sometimes without the subsequent retraction. Explaining the gap in my education and employment history means revisiting the trauma during job interviews. Some people, upon hearing abbreviated versions of the story, still regard me with lingering suspicion. But I have found strength I never knew I possessed. The experience stripped away everything: external achievements, relationship reputation, and forced me to find value within myself when the world saw none. I learned who my true friends were, discovered depths of resilience, and gained perspective that most people my age will never have. I also learned the fragility of truth in an age where accusations spread instantly while exonerations are footnotes. Justice is not a natural force, but something that must be actively pursued, often at great personal cost. Most importantly, I learned that fighting for the truth, even when it seems hopeless, is always worthwhile, if not for the outcome, then for the person you become in the process. Today I am rebuilding my life one day at a time. New university, new friends, new direction. The experience has changed my career goals. I now plan to study law after completing my engineering degree, hoping to help others navigate the intersection of technology, evidence, and justice. I still have days when anger threatens to consume me. Why should I have to rebuild what was wrongfully destroyed? Why did so many people I trusted abandon me without question? Those feelings are valid, but I refuse to let them define my future. If you have ever faced false accusations or had your reputation damaged by lies, remember that your worth is not determined by other people's perception. Truth may take time, but it remains truth whether others recognize it or not. Stand firm, document everything. Seek proper legal help, and never give up fighting for your name and your future. Have you ever been judged unfairly, or had to rebuild your reputation after someone damaged it? Leave a comment below about how you handled it. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who might need to hear that vindication is possible even when things seem hopeless. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the darkest moments lead to the most meaningful growth.